Welcome to Real English Voices, the podcast where you learn English the natural way.
Welcome, and thank you for joining us for this deep dive here on Real English Voices. Today, we're opening up a really essential English toolkit for you.
Hello! Yes, we are very glad you're here with us. We know you want to learn useful, real English, and today we're focusing on the language you really need for stress, for problems, and for making those, well, very tough choices.
That's exactly right. Our mission today isn't just about defining words. It's about giving you the precise phrases that, real native English speakers use when life gets a bit complicated. Everyone faces difficult weeks sometimes, and we really want to equip you with the perfect words to describe those feelings accurately.
And because we're building your foundation in English, we have a very clear method planned. We'll use simple, clear sentences, we'll try to speak slowly, and importantly, we'll repeat the core vocabulary. We want to move deeply into the ideas, sure, but keep the language very approachable. The goal is for you to gain knowledge thoroughly, but, without feeling overwhelmed by lots of new, complex stuff.
Exactly. So we're going to start today with a story. We'll listen to a short conversation between two friends, Emma and Josh. Now, Emma is having a bit of a crisis. She's stressed, and she has some huge decisions to make. We'll listen to most of their conversation first, so you can follow the story and get the context.
Right. And then after we hear the conversation, we'll stop. We'll pull out those powerful phrases one by one. And that's when we'll give you the detailed explanations, the simple definitions, and share some personal stories, too, just to help those phrases stick in your memory.
Okay, so today we dive into how English speakers talk about pressure. Listen carefully to Emma's language of stress and also to Josh's clear advice.
Josh, honestly, my brain is a total mess today. I feel like I am in a muddle. Nothing is clear in my head. Everything feels mixed up. I have problems at work and in my personal life. And, well, I'm facing a huge dilemma.
Okay, let's pause there for just a moment. Emma used a wonderful phrase right at the start, in a muddle.
Yes. When you say you're in a muddle, it means your mind is confused. Your thoughts are messy, kind of like clothes just left everywhere in your room. You can't find anything. You have so many things to think about that you just cannot organize them properly. You truly don't know what you should do first. That feeling of being all mixed up, that's what we call being in a muddle.
She also mentioned she's facing a huge dilemma.
Right, a dilemma. Now, this is very specific. It's not just any problem. It's when you have two choices, let's say option A and option B. But here's the really hard part. Neither choice is perfect. Both choices have good things, yes, but both also have bad things. It makes choosing feel almost impossible. That's a dilemma.
And her choices sound like big ones. She has two job offers. Job one is, well, stable. It offers a very good salary, a position in a large company, and a fancy modern office. But the job itself sounds super boring. She spent all day looking at spreadsheets and writing detailed reports. Yawn.
Yeah, but Job 2, that's the opposite. The work itself sounds amazing. She'd be planning big events, meeting interesting people, maybe get to travel sometime. She thinks she'd truly love the actual work. But the pay, the money she'd earn, is much lower. It makes the future feel less stable, less secure.
So she's forced to decide. Does she choose financial security, the money, or does she choose passion, the job she thinks she'll love? Stability versus happiness, perhaps. That's the real heart of her dilemma.
And if that wasn't enough stress, her current job is adding more pressure. They keep giving her more and more tasks to complete, but they're not giving her any extra pay or any support.
So she tells Josh that this whole situation with the job offers and her current workload makes her feel like she is in a tight corner.
Ugh, in a tight corner. When you feel you're in a tight corner, it means you feel stuck. Stuck in a very difficult, stressful situation. It feels like you're trapped, maybe with your back against the wall. You don't have much room to move, or maybe not many choices to escape the situation. It implies intense pressure and often that feeling of being pushed right to your limit.
Right. And Josh tries to help her see the difference between, let's say, big stress and small stress. He says things like losing your keys or maybe missing the train by a minute. Those are just mildly irritating. They're annoying, yes, for a moment, but you quickly forget about them. They don't ruin your whole day.
Yeah, those are small things. But Emma's problems, like the job choice, the heavy workload, these are intensely annoying. They're the kind of problems that stay with you all day long. They can make you angry about other small things, too, like someone leaving a used coffee cup on the desk when you're already stressed. That feels intensely annoying then.
Emma admits she's just exhausted by it all. She says she almost wants to stop trying to fix everything herself. She feels like she wants to take a back seat.
To take a back seat, that's a really great phrase. It basically means you stop trying to control or lead the situation. You consciously step back. You might allow someone else to deal with the problem, or maybe you simply give yourself a rest from the responsibility for a while.
But she's also trying to stay hopeful, which is good. She tells Josh that maybe, just maybe, she might be starting to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Oh, that's a very powerful, positive phrase. Hopeful. When you say you're seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, it means you are currently in a hard, difficult, maybe dark situation. But you finally see that the bad days are almost over. You sense that relief and hope are coming soon. The end is in sight.
But Josh, being a practical friend, gives her a bit of a warning. He says if she waits too long to decide on those job offers, she might come to a dead end.
Come to a dead end. This means you cannot move forward anymore on that specific path you're on. You've reached a point where there are simply no more options available down that road. The road just stops. So, if Emma waits too long, maybe both job offers might be taken by someone else. She'd have no choice left there. A dead end.
So what does Josh advise? He advises her to stop panicking and start analyzing. He says the very first step is that she must get to the bottom of things.
Right. To get to the bottom of things, this means you need to find the real cause of the problem, the root cause. It means you have to investigate, maybe ask some hard questions, find the actual truth, instead of just reacting to the surface confusion or guessing.
And finally, he tells her she really needs to get a grasp of what matters most to her personally before making the choice.
To get a grasp, this means to really understand something fully, clearly, and properly, deeply understand it. So she needs to understand her own deepest values, what's truly important to her. Only then can she make the right choice between, say, stability and passion.
Wow. That conversation was absolutely packed with powerful, practical English phrases. We just heard 10 different ways Emma and Josh navigate a crisis situation. So let's now pull those concepts out one by one and dedicate some real time to understanding the nuance and how you can apply them in your own life.
Yes, this next section is really crucial for truly learning these phrases, not just hearing them. We'll systematically review all 10. We'll give simple definitions again, focus on when and how you might use them, and share some personal stories to hopefully make them more memorable for you.
Okay, let's start again with that very first feeling Emma expressed, being in a muddle.
Right, in a muddle. So when you're in a muddle, your brain feels overloaded. It's completely messy, confused, all mixed up. You might be trying to solve too many problems at once, maybe juggling too many tasks, and your mind just cannot sort them out clearly.
Yeah, it's more than just being confused for a quick second. It suggests a longer period of mental disorganization. You might be physically tired, sure, but the feeling is really that your mental workspace, your brain, feels too small for all the tasks you've piled in there.
I remember when I first moved to a big city to start my teaching career. Oh my goodness. I was responsible for lesson planning, trying to find an apartment, setting up a new bank account, learning the bus routes, everything all at the same time. I felt constantly in a muddle.
Oh, that sounds completely exhausting.
It really was. One morning, I remember this so clearly. I was so distracted trying to organize my papers and prepare for my first class that I actually put on 2 different shoes, one brown, one black. I walked out of the house like that, got all the way to the school, and one of my students, very politely, pointed it out. My brain was just so in a muddle that it had completely stopped checking even basic things like matching shoes.
That's a perfect illustration, though. My own experience of being in a muddle was definitely when I moved abroad for a new job. I had all this paperwork for the visa, boxes everywhere that needed unpacking, and I was desperately trying to learn the local language at the same time. For weeks, I just felt mentally lost, completely in a muddle.
What did that look like for you? How did it feel?
Well, I'd plan my entire day, maybe write down 3 really important tasks, and then by lunchtime, I'd honestly forget what the first 2 tasks even were. Or I'd go to the supermarket specifically to buy milk, and I'd come home with like 5 different kinds of cheese, but no milk. And when I tried to talk to a new friend, I might start a sentence in English, accidentally switch to the local language mid-sentence, and then maybe end it with a word I just completely made up.
Yeah.
I was truly in a muddle. I felt like a total breakdown of mental organization.
Right. You can use this phrase quite naturally and openly. It's actually a polite way to say, please wait, my head isn't quite working right now. For example, you could say, could you possibly explain that new system again? I'm completely in a muddle today. It signals you need a bit more clarity or time.
Okay, moving on to that crisis of choice Emma had, facing a dilemma.
Yes, facing a dilemma. As we touched on, a dilemma is specifically having two distinct choices, where both choices involve significant trade-offs. You lose something important either way. You know that whatever you choose, something valuable will be missed or sacrificed. It carries real emotional weight. It's not just a simple logical comparison.
Exactly. It's that feeling of being pulled strongly in two different directions at the same time. Maybe your head says, take the stable job, the one with the high salary. But your heart is saying, no, take the fun job, the one that actually makes you happy.
Hmm.
That internal conflict, that difficult balance, is what defines the dilemma.
hmm After university, I was offered two very different paths that really forced me to face a serious dilemma. One option was a prestigious job, quite exciting, at a famous research facility. But it was in another country, far away. A fantastic career opportunity, no doubt. The other option was a stable, comfortable teaching job right in my hometown. This would allow me to be close to my elderly grandmother who needed some support, and also close to my core group of friends.
Wow, those stakes are high. Career versus family and friends.
Very high. Logically, the research job was probably better for my long-term career growth. But emotionally, staying home felt better for my personal life, for supporting my family. I spent weeks, honestly, making pros and cons lists, but the lists just seemed to cancel each other out. It didn't help. If I left, I knew I'd face guilt about my grandmother. If I stayed, I feared I'd face regret about missing that career chance. That heavy feeling, that knowledge of unavoidable loss, no matter what you choose. That is what it means to be facing a dilemma.
I face a similar kind of dilemma, though maybe less dramatic. Deciding whether to rent a really expensive apartment close to the city center or a much cheaper, much bigger place far out in the suburbs. The expensive apartment meant easy commutes, a great social life right there, but constant money stress, worrying about rent every month. The cheaper place meant financial freedom, less stress about money, but spending maybe 2 hours every single day on a crowded, noisy train.
Oof. That's tough too. What helped you finally choose?
Well, nothing really helped until I started thinking really long term. I realized that the daily financial stress from the expensive flat would probably make me unhappy every single day, constantly worrying. So I felt I had to choose peace of mind over convenience. I eventually chose the cheaper flat. But I absolutely remember how intense that dilemma felt while I was trying to make the decision. It was a real choice between two good but conflicting values: convenience versus financial peace.
And remember, you can use the phrase, I am facing a dilemma, or the slightly simpler version, I am in a dilemma about my future plans. Both work perfectly.
Next up, let's look again at that feeling of being almost physically cornered by a situation. In a tight corner.
Right, in a tight corner. When you say you're in a tight corner, you often feel actual pressure, almost physical. The situation is difficult and you feel stuck, trapped. There are very few choices available, maybe none that feel good, and often you feel the weight of expectation or maybe guilt pushing on you. It's frequently caused by external forces, like strict deadlines or other people's demands piling up.
Yeah, I think a tight corner is different from a dilemma. A dilemma is about choosing between two paths, maybe both with pros and cons. But a tight corner often feels like there are no good paths, no good choices left. It means you might be forced into taking a difficult action, almost regardless of the negative consequences.
Exactly. Imagine being asked by your boss to complete two extremely important, urgent projects by the end of the day. But you know mathematically, based on the hours required for each, that you can only possibly finish one of them properly. You're in a tight corner because you are basically guaranteed to disappoint someone, or you'll have to compromise the quality of the work significantly on one or both. There's no winning.
Oh, that happened to me once when I was managing a small team. It was stressful. We were supposed to deliver a really important product demo to a big client, but our main server, the one running the demo, broke down completely about an hour before the presentation. Total disaster. We couldn't postpone the demo. The client was already there, but we also couldn't possibly fix the server in time. We were definitely in a tight corner. We had to quickly decide between trying to present a obviously broken, glitchy product or just standing up and admitting total failure right then and there. Both options felt terrible.
That's a classic tight corner. I had a non-work one once when I accidentally broke the screen on my friend's very expensive camera that I'd borrowed. I knew immediately I couldn't afford to fix it right away, but I also knew if I didn't tell him soon, he'd find out eventually, and that would be worse. I felt completely in a tight corner, trapped between the immediate guilt and embarrassment of confessing or the delayed betrayal of hiding it. Neither felt good at all.
It's a great phrase, though, to communicate urgency and high stress very quickly. If you tell a colleague, look, I'm really in a tight corner with these deadlines today, They instantly understand that you are under extreme pressure and might need assistance, or at least some flexibility.
Okay, let's switch gears slightly and discuss the scale of problems now. We heard mildly irritating versus intensely annoying. These are so useful for describing exactly how much stress something is actually causing you.
Yeah, mildly irritating describes a small, temporary annoyance. Something that bothers you for a moment, maybe causes a quick sigh or an eye roll, but you move on from it quickly. It doesn't ruin your day or significantly change your mood.
hmm Examples are usually simple and happen almost every day, right? Spilling a tiny amount of water on your desk, the Wi-Fi connection slowing down for like 5 minutes, having to wait in a queue for a few extra minutes when you're not in a huge rush. These are all things that are typically just mildly irritating. They're small bumps in the road of your day.
For me, it's when I'm driving, and I suddenly realize I've forgotten my sunglasses on a bright day. It's irritating, sure, the sun's in my eyes, but I can still drive safely. It's just mildly irritating.
Now, intensely annoying, that's a much stronger feeling. Much stronger. This describes something that makes you truly angry or very frustrated or stressed out over a longer period. It really affects your mood and your patience with other things. And this often happens because the problem repeats itself again and again, or maybe because it feels disrespectful or inconsiderate.
Exactly. I think the difference is often the cumulative effect. The buildup. A single loud car driving past your window might be mildly irritating, but a neighbor playing loud bass music at 3 a.m. every single night for 2 weeks straight, that becomes intensely annoying. It stops you from sleeping properly, it probably affects your work the next day, and it makes you lose your patience with completely unrelated people or situations.
Yes. Think back to Emma's example in the story. Her housemate leaving dirty dishes in the sink. If it happens just once, okay, maybe it's mildly irritating, you wash them, maybe say something. But if the housemate leaves the dishes there for 3 days straight and the sink starts to smell bad, and now you physically can't use the kitchen to make your own food, that shift makes it intensely annoying. It's moved from being just an inconvenience to being a real stressor that makes you genuinely angry.
It's important to try and use the correct word for the feeling. You probably don't want to describe missing the bus by 1 minute as intensely annoying. Unless, of course, missing that specific bus means you lose your job. Context matters. Be accurate with your feelings.
Okay, next up, let's look again at Emma's reaction to her fatigue, her exhaustion. She said she wanted to take a back seat.
Right. When you take a back seat, you are consciously stepping away from the control, the main responsibility, or the active leadership role in a situation. You can imagine being in a car. You move from the driver's seat, where you make all the decisions about speed and direction, to the back seat, where you are essentially just a passenger for a while.
And this is often a really necessary act of self-care, not laziness at all. It's about recognizing that if you continue to drive, if you keep pushing yourself in that leadership role, you might actually crash because you're too tired or too stressed to function effectively. You're allowing someone else to take charge, maybe just for a necessary period of rest and recovery.
I definitely remember a time I had to do this. I was the main organizer for a massive community fundraiser event, a huge project. I was planning the budget, managing all the volunteers, sending out hundreds of emails, basically everything. After about 6 months of intense work, I was completely burned out, just exhausted. And I realized I was starting to make silly mistakes because I was so tired.
Oh dear. So what did you do?
I called my co-chair, the person working with me, and I just said, look, I need to take a back seat for the next 2 weeks. I'm hitting a wall. I said, I'll still answer truly essential emails if needed, but you need to run the team meetings and manage the new contracts coming in. And honestly, by stepping back, taking that short but complete rest, I came back much more refreshed, and the quality of my own work improved immediately afterwards.
That makes sense. I had a kind of similar experience, but more personal, when I was trying to help my sister plan her wedding. I got a bit too involved, I think. I was trying to control the food choices, the flowers, the guest list seating plan, everything. It was actually causing arguments between us. Finally, my sister said, very gently, "Look, Rhea, please, could you just take a back seat on the details now and just focus on being the guest of honor, my sister?"
And was the wedding planning better after that?
It was so much better. As soon as I stopped trying to control all the tiny details, I could finally relax and actually enjoy the process with her. So to take a back seat really means allowing others to lead when appropriate, giving yourself permission to simply observe or rest, and letting that stress just dissipate.
This leads us nicely to that positive feeling Emma was searching for, wanting to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes, this is such a beautiful idiom in English. Think about it. A tunnel is usually dark, maybe long, maybe closed in, and sometimes difficult to navigate through. So if you are seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, it means you are nearing the end of that difficult, hard, or dark period in your life or work. You have a sense of hope again because you can see that things are about to get better. The end of the struggle is finally visible.
Hmm. It's essential, though, that you use this when you're talking about a longer-term struggle. You probably wouldn't use this phrase for a problem that only takes 5 minutes to solve. You use it for challenges that have lasted for days or weeks or even months.
Yeah,
It implies you've been through something significant.
definitely. I remember when I was studying for a major professional certification exam, it was tough. I had to study almost every night and every weekend for about 4 months straight. It felt very isolating, and honestly, I often felt quite hopeless, like it would never end. But then, about 2 weeks before the actual exam date, when I finally finished studying the last required textbook, ugh, I truly felt like I was seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. The end of all that intense studying was visible at last.
I had a moment just like that when I was working on renovating my apartment last year. It was chaos. Everything was covered in dust for weeks. I couldn't use my kitchen properly. I was eating unhealthy takeout every single night. It was stressful and surprisingly expensive. Then finally, the painters finished the last wall, the new floor was laid down, and the plumber came and installed the new sink.
Ah, that sounds like a very long and messy process.
It was. It was about 6 weeks of living in total chaos. But when the dust finally settled and I could make myself a simple cup of coffee in my own new clean kitchen for the first time, I literally said out loud to myself, "We did it. We are finally seeing the light at the end of the tunnel."
Mm.
It really signals that shift from prolonged hardship to welcome relief.
It's also a great phrase you can use to offer encouragement to others. If your friend is struggling with a long project or a difficult time, you can tell them, "Keep going, you're almost finished. I know you'll see the light at the end of the tunnel very soon." It offers hope.
Okay, let's pivot now to Josh's warning to Emma, the danger of coming to a dead end.
Right. When you come to a dead end, you've essentially reached a point where the path you were following simply stops. It goes no further. There are no more options available along that particular road. You cannot continue with that specific project or idea or plan any longer.
Yeah, you can imagine literally driving down a road and suddenly there's just a large brick wall right in front of you. It's a dead end. You must turn around. In a life or work context, it means that a certain option has become impossible, often due to outside circumstances changing, or maybe because you've exhausted all your resources or energy on it.
Mm-hmm. I spent nearly a whole year developing a new software application concept with a business partner, a passion project. We invested all our spare time and a lot of our savings into it. We really believed in it. But after months and months of hard work, the laws around software data protection suddenly changed in our country, making our specific product concept actually illegal to launch as planned.
Oh no, that must have been heartbreaking after all that work.
It really was. We felt we had exhausted all our effort and money on that specific idea. We tried every possible solution we could think of to work around the new law, but it was just impossible without completely changing the core product. We had truly come to a dead end. We had to stop, accept the failure of that specific path, take a deep breath, and then start looking for a completely new idea, a new path.
I feel like I came to a dead end when I was researching my family history a while back. I managed to trace my grandparents back successfully for 3 generations, using old documents, birth certificates, things like that. It was fascinating. But then I discovered that the historical records for the next generation before that, the ones I needed, were all completely destroyed in a big fire decades ago. I spent weeks searching other archives, online databases, everything I could think of. But the information was simply gone forever. That particular path of research had reached a permanent dead end.
And it's important to remember, I think, that reaching a dead end doesn't necessarily mean that you personally failed. It often just means that the objective circumstances of that particular path made continuing impossible. So you now need to redirect that energy and maybe start looking for a new, different path forward.
Which brings us neatly to Josh's recommended first action for Emma. She needs to get to the bottom of things.
Yes, to get to the bottom of things. This means you are not satisfied with just the surface explanations or the easy answers. You want to investigate properly, to dig deeper, and find the real, fundamental cause of a problem. You're searching for the complete truth, not just a quick fix.
Right. This phrase is often used when there's maybe some confusion or perhaps even blame being thrown around. Instead of just pointing fingers or making assumptions, you decide to pause, step back, and analyze what is truly happening underneath the surface.
Exactly. For example, imagine if sales at your company suddenly drop quite significantly. The easy surface explanation might be, Oh, the economy is bad right now. But if you decide you need to get to the bottom of things, you might investigate further and find that the real underlying cause is actually a mistake in your recent marketing strategy, or maybe a problem with your product's packaging that customers hate. You need that real truth to actually fix the problem effectively.
I remember once when a student of mine kept missing my early morning class week after week. Honestly, my first assumption was just, oh, he's probably sleeping late, being lazy. But a colleague suggested I should try to get to the bottom of things before jumping to conclusions or punishing him. So I called the student, and I discovered he was actually working a late-night shift job to pay for his studies, and his bus schedule had recently changed, making it physically impossible for him to arrive on time for that early class.
So by getting to the bottom of things, you found the real cause, not just the symptom.
Exactly. I wasn't satisfied with my simple, incorrect guess, lazy student. I looked deeper, I asked, and I found the real truth. Hardworking student with a genuine transportation issue. We were then able to adjust his attendance requirements slightly, and he was able to stay in the class and succeed. Getting to the bottom of it made all the difference.
So you can use this phrase whenever you feel there's a mystery that needs proper solving, like, this office printer keeps crashing every day. Before we just buy a new one, we really need to get to the bottom of things and find out why it's really happening.
Okay, and finally, Josh advised Emma to get a grasp of what matters most to her. Let's explore that key phrase. Get a grasp.
Right, to get a grasp of something. This means you achieve a clear, a thorough, and a complete understanding of it. You move from feeling confused, maybe lost or uncertain, to feeling confident because you finally fully comprehend the subject or the skill or the situation.
Yeah, it's like trying to hold a slippery object, like a wet bar of soap. At first, you might fumble it, maybe drop it a few times. But when you finally get a grasp on it, you can hold it firmly and securely. It usually requires effort, maybe practice, and definitely concentration to get that firm grasp.
When I first started teaching English grammar, these complex rules, the different tense changes, all the irregular verbs and exceptions, it felt completely overwhelming at times. I could memorize the rules from a book, sure, but I couldn't always use them automatically or correctly in a fast conversation. I hadn't really gotten a grasp of it yet.
So what changed? How did you get that grasp?
Honestly, it just took time and immersion, constant practice. It wasn't really until I started teaching more advanced students, the ones who asked very detailed, tricky questions that required really deep analysis of why the rules work the way they do. That's when I finally got a grasp of the complex structure of English grammar. It felt like a massive mental shift. I finally understood the underlying system, not just the list of individual rules.
I remember feeling that way when I was learning to cook more complex recipes, beyond just simple pasta. At first, all the steps felt impossible, measuring everything precisely, getting the timing right, preparing multiple things all at once. I was just blindly following the instructions without really thinking. But after a few months of cooking, almost daily, practicing, I started to understand the relationships between the different ingredients and the heat and the techniques. I finally felt like I got a grasp of how to actually cook well, intuitively.
And that confidence changes everything, doesn't it? Once you get a grasp of a new skill or a complex situation, you don't feel lost anymore. You feel strong, capable. So Emma needs to get a grasp of her own priorities. Is long-term financial stability or daily job happiness truly the most important thing for her? Only when she understands that clearly can she move past her dilemma with confidence.
Fantastic. We have analyzed 10 truly essential English phrases for discussing problems, stress, and difficult decisions. This deep dive has hopefully expanded your English toolkit for dealing with those inevitable stressful situations in life.
Yes. Now let's just do a quick, slow review of those main concepts one more time, just to help make sure they are clearly locked in your memory before we finish.
Okay. We reviewed feeling confused, in a muddle, making hard choices, facing a dilemma, feeling trapped or stuck in a tight corner. We also learned the difference in scale of annoyance between mildly irritating and intensely annoying.
We discussed taking necessary rest or stepping back, take a back seat, seeing hope ahead, the light at the end of the tunnel, reaching an immovable stop on a path, come to a dead end, and finding the real truth, get to the bottom of things, and finally achieving that clear, full understanding, get a grasp.
Great. Now let's just test your memory quickly with 5 simple practice questions. Listen slowly and maybe try to answer out loud if you can.
Okay, question 1. If you have too many thoughts and everything feels messy and disorganized in your mind, you are in a muddle.
Pause, muddle. You're in a muddle.
Good. Question 2. If you have 2 choices, but both choices have significant good parts and also bad parts, making it hard to choose, you are facing a
Pause, dilemma. Facing a dilemma.
Excellent. Question 3. If you are forced into a very difficult situation with no easy way out, feeling trapped, you are in a tar.
Tight corner.
Yeah.
Tight corner.
Perfect.
That's it.
Question 4. If you decide to stop leading a project or managing a situation and you let someone else take the pressure for a while, you take a backseat. You take a backseat.
Okay, last one, question 5. If you want to find the real hidden reason why a problem is happening, not just the surface issue, you need to get to the path.
Bottom of things. Get to the bottom of things.
You are doing brilliantly. Remember, the key now is to try and practice these phrases this week, maybe in your own conversations or even just thinking to yourself.
Yes, thank you again for taking this deep dive with us here on Real English Voices. We sincerely hope these phrases help you navigate your own difficult weeks with a bit more confidence in your English.
And just before we go, here's a final thought for you to perhaps carry into your week, especially when you might be facing some pressure. When you feel yourself being pushed in a tight corner this week, maybe at work or at home, what is just one small thing you could perhaps choose to take a back seat from, even just for a short while, just to give yourself a necessary break?
Think about that small, maybe necessary rest. It might just be the first little step to helping you start to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Keep practicing your English, keep exploring new phrases, and keep learning. We'll see you next time.
Goodbye for now. Take care.